Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks, and you read the title correctly. This is a triple feature movie review. 3 movies came out this weekend. I saw all of them in the span of 3 days, and just so I could have some time by myself to spend with my family for the holidays and winter break, I just decided to condense all these reviews into one video, so that way I don't have to make 3 separate videos for these 3 separate movies throughout my holiday and winter break. These opinions and thoughts of mine were taken a little after I saw the films and had time to process my thoughts and clearly state them. Although, since these aren't really that concise, this isn't like a typical review style, the reviews for these movies are probably going to be a bit more rambly, a bit more all over the place with my criticisms and positives with each of the movies, so keep that in mind. If that's a problem, I'm sorry. This was the only way I felt like I could have time to make videos for these movies and share my thoughts with them, as well as have enough time to spend with my family for the holidays and time for myself during my winter break. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started with this triple feature review with...
You're so adorable. Maybe I'll eat you. I'm kidding. Where am I?
Okay, so I just got done watching the new film Migration from Illumination. As you probably already heard, I was really looking forward to this movie. It looked charming, cute, pleasant, one of the better films. And unfortunately, that did not happen for me. I thought this movie was okay. Pretty much my feelings like Mario. I thought this movie was fine. Some things worked, others didn't. It's not the worst of the studio, but it's also not one of their best. This year has just been a fascinating experience for me as someone who I think can safely say has been one of the biggest defenders of this company and has liked a lot of their movies in the past, and yet without everyone views both of these movies as, oh yeah, this is Illumination heading in the next, like, the step in the right direction. These are their best movies in recent memory by far. Definitely check these out. And I'm here in my little corner going, they've done better. It's such an, again, if you like these movies, good for you. I'm happy that you like these movies. Enjoy them. Don't let me rain on your parade. But for me, these just didn't do it for me as much as everyone else did, sadly. Like with Mario, the biggest problem for this movie is the story and the characters. The premise here of these birds migrating just isn't enough to sustain a feature-length film for me. You can tell they were just struggling to get this to feature length. This movie couldn't even get to 90 minutes. It's an 82-minute film. It's very, very short. I mean, I guess that's why they played the Vector short film before this, just so the whole experience feels like a 90 minutes. But you could tell they were just like struggling to get this to like feature length, because at first it's about the birds migrating, then they meet up with these heron, then they get lost in New York, and then they have to find these other birds, and then they're getting chased by a chef, and it's all just all over the place. There's not a lot of really much of a central focus here. It's a premise. It's not terrible by any means. I wasn't really bored, but it definitely there were lulls, and I wasn't as interested as the film wanted me to be. It didn't really grab my attention as much as I hoped for, really. I just feel like the writing on that aspect just didn't really work. I really feel like this should have just been the birds lost in the big city, like how a lot of the trailers are promoting this. That should have been like the whole movie pretty much, as that's where I found this movie to be the most entertaining, the most fun and interesting, whereas the rest of the movie was just like, it's alright, I guess. And then as for the characters, on their own, there's not much to them. The dad is just Marlin from Finding Nemo. The son is just Nemo. The little girl duckling is just the baby birds from those Angry Birds movies wrapped up into one. Keegan-Michael Key is a parrot in this movie, and he really doesn't do a lot in this movie. He's just Sebastian, but not as funny or charming, and a bird. I liked the mom in this movie. I liked her arc, and surprisingly enough, I liked Aquafina, not just because she's barely in the movie, but she actually had a lot of funny lines here and there. But yeah, these characters on their own, there's just not much to them, really. They just don't do a lot to make them stand out from each other and make them as interesting. They're not hateable or anything. I just think they're kind of bland and generic. And back onto the story aspect, this film does borrow heavily from, like, a lot of other movies. It's Rio 2. It's, again, Finding Nemo. At one point, it reminded me of the Bob's Burgers movie for some reason. There's a point where, like, someone loses hope, and it just really reminded me of that one scene from the Bob's Burgers movie, the low point in that movie. Yeah, but those were my main issues with this movie. It's not terrible. There are some still, like, good aspects here. First off, the animation. This movie is gorgeous. Like, the flight scenes are magnificent. That if there's one reason to see this movie in the theater, it is for those scenes. They really take advantage of the animation there. It almost felt like How to Train Your Dragon in a sense, with the score and how the camera movements and how it really took flight, pun not intended, with these moments, and it just looked so gorgeous and dazzling. And also a lot of the character animation and facial expressions were really funny. They went off model for some of the expressions and the movements, and it reminded me a lot of Hotel Transylvania in that sense, and it really added to the comedy. Speaking of the comedy, the movie is also surprisingly pretty funny. Nothing is outright hilarious or laugh out loud by any means. This is not comedy gold like Minions: The Rise of Gru, but you know, I laughed a lot of cute jokes here and there, some good slapstick, some good physical comedy, and one-liners here and there. And I will say that while I don't really care for these characters on their own, I did like them when they were all together. Wow, I messed that up a lot. But yeah, when they're together, I think their dynamic is strong. The family aspect and the message of the movie shines through when they're all together interacting. Their whole dynamic reminded me a lot of Bob's Burgers and even Bluey in a sense. It was really nice seeing them all together and interacting. It led to some of the more funny and heartfelt moments of the movie for me. So yeah, overall, the movie's okay. It's not great. Illumination has done better, in my opinion. I like the first two Despicable Me movies better than this. I liked Minions 2 better than this, and I even liked both Sing movies over this. But, you know, it's not terrible. If the kids really want to see this, I'd say go check it out. They're definitely going to like this movie a lot. This is definitely something more for young children. This is not like a Ninja Turtles or Spider-Verse or Elemental or even Leo or Trolls, where there's stuff like some of the comedy and like the musical numbers and like the character stuff will grab an adult's attention. This is definitely more for a younger audience. Unless if like Wonka is sold out and you got nothing better to watch, I wouldn't say you need to rush out to see this. But again, if you're curious, I'd say go check it out. There's worse things you could do with your time, I guess. Yeah. Overall, this movie was just fine. It was average. Again, this is very interesting for me because I like a lot of the studio's movies, and yet both movies from them really let me down, and yet for everyone else, they're all praising this. It's such an odd experience for me. I'm the outcast who praised these movies, and now I'm the outcast that's going against these movies. Definitely interesting experience for me. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Migration.
Do you have a mole or something on your butt?
No. What the fuck? One might be in you.
I'm good.
It's probably a better way to check than what I did.
It's a bad idea, right?
Okay, so I just got done watching Anyone But You, the new R-rated rom-com starring Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell. I was looking forward to this movie. I wanted to see like another R-rated comedy in general in theaters, and despite the first trailer not giving off the best first impression, I was immediately sold by the second trailer. I thought that showed the movie a lot better, presented the story better, and I was interested from there on forward. And I'm happy to say that I really liked this movie. It really surprised me. It was a lot better than both trailers, actually. I find this interesting that with both this and Peter Rabbit, because they're both by the same directors of all things, that both their first trailers left such the worst first impression ever, and their movies ended up being so much better than those trailers. Just, oh my gosh, that guy just needs to find people who make better trailers. But anyway, I really like this. It was a lot raunchier than I expected it to be. I knew it was going to be rated R, but there's a lot of much more raunch to this film. Definitely a lot more nudity in this movie than I was expecting it, and a lot of it is played for laughs, and thankfully a lot of the humor in this movie is very, very funny. I was actually laughing out loud and consistently throughout the whole thing, whether it be how Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell banter and bicker with one another. I thought they played off of each other very well and had some solid chemistry, or like the awkward cringe type of situations the characters got themselves into. Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney are surprisingly very good at physical comedy, actually. I hope they do end up doing more stuff in that vein in the future. And I just really liked a lot of the characters in this movie. Again, Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell, they had solid chemistry, and I think they did great with the material, with the romantic bits and the comedic bits. I liked a lot of the side characters in this movie, even though they aren't on their own, they're not really all that special, but when they are with the main characters and just interacting with everyone else, I thought they really shined and were very funny, very charming. There's not really a lot more to say about this movie. It's a rom-com. You've seen one of them, you've seen them all, really. This really doesn't do a lot to change the formula, but it has its own personality, it has its own style, and I really dug what they were able to accomplish with this movie. I do think it's a little too long. The ending gets a bit too sappy and cheesy for me, but that's just my opinion. I think some other people will view this differently. And once again, some of the side characters I wish had a bit more personality and a bit more charm to them to make them stand out. Like, yeah, that guy or she was like the highlight of the movie, where they're just like, oh yeah, I enjoyed them when they were on screen. And as typical with like a lot of other R-rated comedies, some of the humor just doesn't work. Some of it is a bit awkward, but yeah, still not much more else to say on this movie. I thought it was really cute and charming and funny. Not a must-watch by any means, but, you know, if you're interested, like me, you were sold on, like, the second trailer, and you, like, want to support, like, a new rom-com in theaters, I'd go check it out. I'd say go see it at the theater. It was a fun experience for me seeing it with a crowd. The audience really dug this movie. They were cracking up a lot. They really liked this movie. But, yeah, I really liked it. Not a must-watch by any means, not even one of the best movies of the year in my opinion, but definitely cute and sweet enough that I'd say go check it out.
Without hope. You're not as bad at this as you think. If you lead, the seven kingdoms will follow.
Okay, so I just got done watching Aquaman 2 and the Lost Kingdom, whatever the hell it's called, and yeah, it was bad. It was not good. It wasn't a train wreck, though. It wasn't like astonishingly, like catastrophically bad, in my opinion, cause you know, it's still a sequel to Aquaman. It's still directed by James Wan. It still has some cool action sequences here and there, and when it gets to be really silly and stupid, even though it's really small and short in places and very few and far in between, it can be entertaining during those aspects. Like, there's a scene where they go to like this other underwater place and they meet up with this sea creature voiced by Martin Short of all people, and I was very happy to hear his voice, and he did a good job. At least I was happy that Martin Short got some time to shine. He was easily the best character in the movie, and they go to this jungle where all these giant creatures live, and that's pretty cool, I guess. But ultimately, this movie is not very good. Once again, it's not a train wreck. It's not awful by any means. It's just really forgettable. Like, I'm probably gonna not really remember a lot about this movie in like 2 days from now. It's just a very basic, by the numbers superhero movie. Unfortunately, there's just way too much stuff going on, and they try to condense all of this stuff happening in just 2 hours, and it does not work. Where you have Aquaman struggling to be a father, Aquaman struggling to be a king, Aquaman struggling to be a good brother, the brother coming out of imprisonment, Black Manta wanting to take down Aquaman, but then he gets hypnotized by this trident that has the spirit or the soul of this other bad guy who wants to take over the world. And you have Randall Park in the movie who's working for Black Manta but also doesn't really condone his actions or motivations. All of this happens in this movie, and it's very disjointed. It often at times feels very unfocused and just way too much stuff going on all at once. They probably should have just like cut a couple things out, simplified the story just so that it all makes sense, or extended the movie's runtime, which I know is not fun, but I think it would have benefited the movie a ton just to make the story a bit more interesting. The characters in this movie, not very interesting. Even if the actors are trying their best, they were all clearly trying to work with the material they were given, but unfortunately, they all just came off as a bit one note. Black Manta is just the bad guy. Aquaman is Aquaman. Patrick Wilson is the brother who is the more straight man to Aquaman's goofy, life is a party type mentality, and it just doesn't really work. They try to do a buddy cop comedy with the two of them, and the comedy just does not work, and the comedy itself also is just really bad. There's borderline times where it turns into a Looney Tunes cartoon, other times where it's a gross out comedy, other times it's very juvenile, very the comedy just does not work. I just didn't find any of it to be really funny or entertaining. When it gets goofy and silly, it works, but even then the comedy still just didn't work. It was just a lot of bad jokes and poorly timed jokes and comedy in that regard. I just there's just not a lot for me to say here. It's just Aquaman 2 for me. I wasn't really that much of a fan of the first one. I wasn't really looking forward to this. The trailers did not do it any favors for me either, but I still wanted to give it a shot. It's the DCU's last film before James Gunn steps into control, and I'm looking forward to that. But even as like a big last grand finale, it just doesn't work. It just feels like we had to make this movie and we had to release it. We gave it all this money. Here it is. Here's the last movie. The climax and the action scenes, while some of it were really fun, I do think the final action sequences were a bit underwhelming, and even at times, especially the final battle, anticlimactic. Like, they took out that bad guy quick. This movie was wrapping up and wanted to get done. I've never seen a movie want to end so much more quicker than what happened with this movie. Yeah, overall, I this is definitely, out of all three of these movies, this is the most rambly I've been, but I'm struggling. I'm struggling to come up with anything else here to say. It's just the second Aquaman movie. Again, I didn't really care for the first one, but even that still had more cooler stuff in it. They had some cool action scenes. They had some cool comedic bits, and the journey felt big and grand, I guess you could say, and that climax was definitely entertaining. This had none of that. The journey wasn't that grand. The story wasn't great. Characters weren't interesting. And the few times where the movie was fun and entertaining could not salvage it for me, unfortunately. So yeah, overall, I don't recommend checking this movie out. It's another bad comic book movie. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing what James Gunn does in the future. Apparently, Momoa is still in. He's just not going to play Aquaman. I'm unaware of the character he plays. I forgot the character's name, as you could probably tell with my connection to this character. But I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with Jason Momoa and his character in the future, and what he does with the character of Aquaman, as well as this whole universe in general. But yeah, overall, in regards to just this movie, it just didn't deliver for me. I just didn't really care, honestly. And those were my thoughts on Migration, Anyone But You, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. What were your thoughts on any or if all of these movies, if you've seen any or all of them? If you've seen all of them, how would you rank them? Which one was your favorite? Which one was your least favorite? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.